Welcome everyone to Buying Local. I'm your host, Mike Nelson from Five Towers Media. I am joined today by an old friend, a great friend, Karen Carey. Uh, Ruby Red Road. Karen, I don't. I know that it's Ruby Red Road, right?
Yeah. Yes, it is.
But I didn't know if there's like, is it like Ruby Red Road Coaching, or is it just Ruby Red Road?
Ruby Red Road.
Just Ruby Red Road. Okay.
The, the
Uh,
easy one.
I feel like you don't really need an introduction because I almost feel like everyone knows you, but just in case people have not had the pleasure of meeting you out and about in the world, can you just give our audience just a kind of quick who you are and what you do kind of thing?
Should I? No, I'm just kidding.
I know, yeah. Only if you want to, Karen.
Yeah. So I'm an intuitive life coach.
Okay.
Um, I'm a speaker and an author. And the simple version is I help people get to know, like, and trust themselves so that the world can know, like, and trust them, and they can go from where they are to where they want to be. Sort
Hmm.
of, yeah.
Yeah. It's it's just so interesting. It's funny because I was skimming back through your book again just to reacquaint myself with some of the things that you talked about in it, which is we're going to talk about your book today, just in case. There it is. Um, so we're going to talk about your book, but it's an interesting thing about your industry, right? Like it's there's I think a lot of good. Obviously I'm a big personal and professional development nut junkie, whatever you want it, whatever term you want to there. I'm a big believer in a big proponent of it. And but I still, even with that said, Karen, I still have a tough time sometimes. I think you and I have talked about this with that whole industry, the whole coaching industry, with all of it. Again, you and I have kind of gone back and forth. But I also know like how great it is. I know how effective you are. I know you work with a lot of people. I've worked with you on and off over the years. I think what you do is amazing and effective. I promise there is a question in here somewhere. Uh, but it's before we get into talking about the book and what made me think about this is there is sometimes a stigma associated with the kind of coaching that you do that's I would say a negative stigma, and I just think that's because like any industry there's a lot of people that are in it that probably shouldn't be in it and doing it, and they kind of give it a bad name. And I know it's a little off topic, but I just as you were introducing yourself, you're using words that sometimes people are like, oh, that's super woo.
Yeah.
And I just so I wanted to kind of blow that bomb up in the beginning, like
I like that.
the blowing the bomb up in the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's an old Sandler rule. The best way to defuse a bomb is to blow it up.
Okay.
Um, but how do you handle that? Like, what are your thoughts on all that? That whole diatribe that just went on about the woo side of coaching and
Yeah.
personal feelings, and I'm just curious of how you approach that.
Yeah, it's interesting because there are so many perspectives to coaching. So
Hmm.
so many, right? And so there's a certain audience out there, or, certain set of people who actually appreciate and want that sort of intuitive part.
Hmm.
Didn't used to have that in my title, but I decided, why hide it?
Yeah,
No, why not just say, like, yeah, I'm intuitive. I see things, I hear things sometimes, but I'm also just going to ask you the hard questions.
yeah,
I call it, like, combine the magical and the practical, because what used to really frustrate me was I would go to therapy or I would go to coaching or whatever, and it would all be like in one lane.
hmm,
And for me, that never worked. I have to have a relationship with whoever I work with.
hmm,
I mean, like, they have to be a human with me, not a robot who's got some structure that it is a really nice tight box
hmm.
you can't veer outside of. And I allow that with my clients as well, because those are the kind of people that I want to work with. We can laugh, we swear on occasion if somebody wants to. Um, and I guess how I deal with it is I have to deal with it in here first
Yeah.
so that I'm not doubting myself. I have spent so much time studying so many different kinds of coaching, and I still do it.
Hmm.
My current one is, as you know, to get out there and be seen. So, that's my next step, right? Because with a million coaches out there, I feel like and not to use this word so much, but the know, like, and trust factor is huge now.
Yeah.
You don't know who's real, who's not, who's like, any good at their job. Do they have a life? Do they, you know what I mean? Are they in the square box or are they outside the box? Or,
Or have they done any of the work that they're coaching people through? That's
right.
something Bill Tanzi and I had talked about in the past. Because again, it's in every industry, but the coaching industry, I feel like, has become so rife with people that haven't done what they're coaching people to do.
Yeah.
In like in Bill's case, being a part of businesses and implementing these structures and doing all these things, he has real world application of that knowledge. And or like in your case on the life side, and reading your book, right? Like you've been through a lot of stuff in life and been able to overcome it and go through it and sit with it and learn lessons from it, which I think is great. And we'll talk about the, I'm going to say it wrong, Kintsugi.
And Suki, good job.
Yeah, okay, good. All right, sweet. And we'll talk about that, but it's just, there's just a lot of, I don't want to say bad coaching, 'cause I'm not here to disparage anyone, but there's a lot of coaching that really just only comes from knowledge and doesn't come from application of that knowledge.
Yep.
And yeah, so I think that's like the big differentiator, right? Like you practice many of the things that you preach.
And
You
I'm still practicing.
and still practicing. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, like
Still practicing, right? Yes. No, I love that. I mean, I think it's an important part of the conversation. And once again, I'm not like some people are built for the box,
yeah.
right? And they need that. For me, like it just like turns me right down. I just shut down,
Hmm.
because it doesn't feel like a human interaction. I mean,
Yeah.
I could work with AI for that, right?
Yeah, you just have AI life coach you. That's kind of in line with some of the coaches that I'm talking about. Is you might as well be talking to AI because it's just knowledge. It's not application of that knowledge, right?
Exactly.
Um, and
Like
it's
well,
go ahead.
when you did your work, it wasn't in a box.
No,
I mean, there's structure, right? There's calling out to do something different, but it's not a box.
yeah, yeah. It needs to be fluid, I would imagine. Um, and again, working with someone like you, it's funny because when I was rescanning the book this morning, I don't say rescanning. I was scanning the book this morning just to for a couple specific things I wanted to bring up that I remembered from reading it. And it was interesting because there's things in there, especially specifically in the what is it, part three of the book, the later part where you're starting to give people like, here's the things that you do. Um,
The
that
last part.
yeah, that were sounded really uncomfortable to me.
Yeah, I bet they are.
And I was like, ooh, like I started to think about it and it was so uncomfortable. Like I didn't even want to think about it. I think I'm just going to move on now. And I was like, wow. But interesting in that that's where the work is, right? Like the parts that are making you uncomfortable, the parts that you're kind of hearing. And like to me, I hear things that sound woo sometimes and I'm like, that's silly. Right. I don't want to do any of that shit. And then, but realistically, I'm probably immediately turned off by it because it is the work that I really need to do. And I don't want to do it because it's going to be the more uncomfortable stuff, which is probably
Yep.
why I haven't done it yet. Uh, so anyway, I just wanted to ask you about that because it was something that struck me this morning. And then again, when you're introducing yourself. Um, so let's talk about your book.
Well, I wait a minute. I feel
Hold
like
on.
you've done some uncomfortable work.
Some of it, not all of it though.
Well, I'm always going to challenge people to do the deeper work
Yeah.
I feel like that's when we really get to like transform. But transform to what? Like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
we don't want to just do the deep work and then just be left with that, right?
Yeah.
Well, there has to be a purpose and meaning to it for people, or what's the point?
Hmm.
Maybe not, once again, maybe not everybody's built for that. I started so young, like from the book, like so fascinated with people. Like I've been obsessed with who people are, what they do, how they do it, why they're doing it, why are they gossiping, what are they,
Hmm.
started so young with me that I mean, this has been my entire life,
Yeah.
inside and out.
Yeah. So much to unpack on this, Karen. So in that you talk about doing work, like one of the things that also I continually think about, and I was thinking about this morning as I was going through some of the stuff in your book, and I was like, man, like I mean, a lot of people have been doing so much introspection, personal work, going through coaching, going to whatever they're doing, going to yoga, whatever it is. And it's like, and I was asking myself the question this morning, like, do you have to revisit some of that stuff? Because like you talk a lot about patterns, right? And in
Mhm.
your book, you specifically touch on patterns, right? Like at
The-
the end of each chapter, you have the
Yep.
I forget what the first part is, the story, maybe the story that you're telling yourself, and then the pattern, and
Yeah.
then
The story I told myself, the pattern, and the gold.
the gold. Yes,
Yeah.
which I guess we'll have to define the Kintsugi. I don't know why I have such a tough time saying it.
Oh, you're doing good.
Kintsugi,
Kint, Kin,
K-I-N-T.
Kintsugi.
Kintsugi. So we'll have to explain that to people so you can understand that. But in that though, I kept thinking like there's patterns in my life that I thought I had overcome years ago, and then they rear their ugly heads up, and all of a sudden I realize I'm in the middle of one. I'm like, how did this come back? I thought I did this already. I thought we were done with that, right? So I'm interested to get into that with you a little bit. So and I know that you and I are going to go off on some tangents. So let's back up, Karen,
Okay. All right.
and let's define kintsugi. I don't know why I have such a tough time with that.
Doing good. A lot of people do. It's not just you.
Okay, good, thank you.
So most people know what it is or have heard of it before, where you've got a beautiful plate or a vase or something and it falls and breaks into all these beautiful, terrible pieces, and then you put it back together with gold inlay and it becomes
Mhm.
a more beautiful work of art. So that's the whole premise of the book is, we have lives. We there is, as hard as this is to believe sometimes, there is gold within every experience we've ever had.
Hmm.
It doesn't mean we want to live it again. It doesn't mean, the trauma. Maybe it's there, maybe it's not. But there's something to learn from. I don't mean like sometimes when I use the word learn or people use the word lesson or learn,
Hmm.
it's like a negative connotation.
Yeah, lesson learned.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I don't like that. I feel like it's more of I've had this experience. I understand myself better. I understand my patterns better. I understand where they came from better. And they're going to come back. But I know when they come back for me, it's because there's something I'm not saying or something I'm not doing.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, it does.
Right? There's these things that we don't handle. And so maybe we want to avoid it, or we've always been good at, or we get angry, or, whatever the thing is that we have,
Mhm.
that we carry around, that's our pattern, will come back. And if we're paying attention, like you said, we'll notice it.
Yeah.
We can say, oh,
I'm
what's going
doing it again.
Okay, what am I not saying? What am I doing and not doing? What is going on here? Not so, I mean, it's not like fixing ourselves, right? It's
Mhm.
like we're humans. We're going to have these things happen for our entire life, pretty much. Unless you're some kind of monk or, maybe they don't have it, but I think sometimes they have a little stuff too.
Mhm.
We're not sitting on the mountain in a ashram or anything. We are here in life with people around us, family and triggers. And so it's really about learning how to be kind to yourself and also embracing the gold within each experience.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting how you did that at I want to say was it in the second part of the book that where you're closing each like chapter with those three things. And I
Those,
yeah, so I thought that was really interesting to be able to take a look at all these experiences that are defining us in one way or another, it sounds like, right? And then being able to see what happened, like the story you're telling yourself about what happened, and then the would you say it's the underlying pattern?
yeah.
And would you say that it's the pattern that's being built because of the story you're telling yourself, or is it you're telling yourself the story because of the pattern?
I feel like the story comes from the experience that you've had.
Hmm.
And then to feel safe, we build this pattern around us.
Okay.
It would be like, always, hiding or maybe, just being really good at sports or, like dressing really sexy or, people have different ways of staying safe and you wouldn't believe how some people do it, right?
Mhm.
And staying safe means I don't want to have that experience again, and I don't want to think about it or know about it. So I am going to do something else that replaces that.
That's interesting. And so, like an easy example in that's going to be like drugs or alcohol, right? Like
Yeah,
people are feeling a certain way, they turn to drugs and alcohol, numbs them, or whatever they get from it, right?
absolutely.
What do you,
That's an example, right?
yeah. What do you think are like some subtle things that people don't realize that they of patterns?
Well, I'll just talk about myself.
Okay.
So for me, I it was safe. I was always safest if I was sick.
Hmm.
So I spent my life with like migraines and, just I don't, I didn't want them. I didn't know that's what I was doing that, but that was developed so young
Hmm.
that it was safer to be sick than to not be sick. That sort of carried with me through my life. Does that make sense?
Well, it does. I mean, I'm thinking about that part in the book when you talk about that a little bit about going to the hospital and the care that you're giving, and it just made you feel really. You had these caregivers around you and being nice to you, and the whole thing. And so
Yep.
because of that, you developed this pattern that was like, if I'm always sick, that means people are going to want to take care of me and give me love and make me feel good.
Yeah, and
If I have that right.
no, I mean, yeah, it was a way to stay like, and then there's a little bit more to it. Like, if I was sick, there was no violence happening in my world,
Hmm.
right? And so, and then I go to the hospital and I'm really being taken care of. So put that combination together and you've got like, oh, it's better to be sick than not.
Yeah.
Better to not have fun. Better to be small and insignificant. Better to be, blah. What are some other things?
Yeah,
Uh,
that's interesting because you had mentioned in the book as well about fun specifically. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that. I mean, you talk about it in the book, but it's like uh, where you were basically that fun was the new F word, right? Like and you were like being told that you needed to have fun, which is wild because I don't think that anyone would think that they don't have fun, but I guess a lot of people don't, right?
right? Because there's this like, I can be too, I can be too
Mhm.
big sometimes, right? I can
Sure. I mean, I don't think so, but
get a really loud laugh sometimes, my voice when I get excited and passionate, like, whoa, and I was kind of like that, but I didn't think like it was kind of unacceptable at the time.
hmm
I was thinking for people to be like that. Um, so yeah, I mean that I go to this reading and and it's on the phone and she's like, "Oh, I'm hearing like she said your guides are really funny." And I was like, "Yeah, what are they saying?" She's like, "You need to practice the new F word." And I was like, "What's that?" She said, "Fun." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I didn't really ever put together that I wasn't having fun.
hmm
I have always worked. Sick and work. Sick and work, sick and work.
yeah,
Because what else is there to do, right? Take a vacation, now and again, but what's fun, so
yeah, yeah. I
yeah.
mean, my thoughts on those things. We talk about it often enough, but like I'm like vacation. That sounds terrible. I gotta work all the time.
And then, of course, the second one, and it's in the book where she says, I mean, when I got it the second time, which was, I don't know how much later, a couple of years, or I was like, I sit down, she's the first thing she says out of her mouth, and I'm at the Mind, Body, Soul Expo here, and I have a table, and I got a few minutes, so I go over and I sit down. She's like, um, all work and no play make Karen a dull girl.
Yeah,
Like, how is this possible? I'm having fun, aren't I? So then I have to ask myself, like, who am I being in this world? Like, so serious and I can be an overthinker. So that's why I meditate a lot. I read the books that teach me how to get my system to settle down. Like if I'm doing a speaking engagement, like I can be awake I remember one time I didn't sleep for like 3 weeks. But that was in the beginning of doing some
yeah,
speaking. And it was a bigger crowd for the first time. It was like a couple hundred people as opposed to 10 or 12 people.
right, right.
Um, but even still, I have to like keep my nervous system like in check no matter what I'm doing, which means yoga for me, something called Nia, which is a dance, um, choreographed, great, you know, um,
Yeah,
size thing. I have to do the things, and sometimes I get a I don't wanna mode.
yeah. I know that mode very well.
Yeah, do you ever feel like that? Like I just don't want to, and then I go
Do
for
I
like,
ever feel like it? I feel like that almost all day, every day.
right?
I'm like, yeah, like I want to do this right now, but I have to do it.
Exactly. Like, and for me, it's like the stuff of like meditating or something. I just don't want to do. I don't feel like it today. Like, why don't I feel like it?
hmm
It's just getting me and my body and settled down and relaxing, and then I can step into the day properly. And
hmm
yeah, silly.
So, so when you're putting the book together, Karen, like, what was that process like for you?
For me, it was quite an extraordinary process because, as you know, the stuff that I talk about is old and
Mhm.
deep and very, very traumatizing. Um,
Very personal, just to say that for the audience, right? Like,
Very personal.
you're sharing very personal things in your book that I think probably a lot of people. I mean, I've known you for I don't know almost 20 years now. So some of that stuff I knew, but there's a lot of stuff in there I had never heard before from you. So it's and very personal stuff.
Yeah. And the thing is, my intention wasn't for people to really know about me,
hmm
but that it would provide a way for them to understand themselves.
Mm.
And in order to do that, I felt like I needed to actually, I always feel like people aren't real enough. Sometimes in books, sometimes because I know I've worked with a lot of people in my life
Mhm.
and they got shit going on.
Yeah.
And it looks like these perfect lives and these perfect, everything's perfect. And no, things are not perfect, but that's okay, right? It's not supposed to be perfect. But I always feel like I felt like it would open a door to people, for people to be able to just, look at their life differently. Maybe give them a little bit of space to explore, like, I wonder what my patterns are, you know? I wonder, is there gold in there? I don't think so,
Right.
but ultimately there is. And it was a long process, but it was a good one.
I'm just writing down a question here. I want to make sure I asked you before we end today, which is not yet, obviously, but sorry, just want to make sure I wrote that down so don't forget it.
Good.
So you're going through this process, you're writing this book, you're sharing a lot of personal stuff.
Mhm.
I'm curious to know, like, you're being very vulnerable
Mhm.
by
Yep.
putting all this stuff down on paper. Uh, how many times do you think, because I'm assuming this happened, how many times do you think you're like, no, I can't share that, or I probably shouldn't put that in there?
Yeah, I mean, there is nothing spared in this book,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, there's a lot in there.
What I thought about most, Mike, honestly, is my children.
Is what? I'm sorry you cut out there.
Sorry. My children.
Okay.
Um, I thought, what would it be like for them to read this? And will it harm them in any way? I don't think they've actually read it, but I've read a couple chapters to them,
Mhm.
and the feedback was from my daughters, at least. My son was like, they read it. He and his wife read it together, and they did good. Um, the feedback from them, which encouraged me by what they said to move forward, was that a lot of books are just like theory,
Hmm.
and this is not a book that's about theory. It's the whole picture, as
Yeah.
a just a drop of it. Does that make sense?
No, it does make sense. I mean, I've read it, so I have the context of what you're talking about, right? So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But it was, my inner children gave me a lot of migraines. Let's just say
yeah,
that.
I bet.
Even though I don't have them anymore. So I was like, nope, we're going to finish this. It's going to happen. I don't care if I have a migraine every day. Let's gather around and do this and make it happen.
Yeah.
And so I did. And, there were some mishaps along the way, as you know, and
I mean, yeah, right. Putting a book together, especially one like this, is not always, an easy process for sure.
yeah, exactly. It was good though. It was actually a healing process for me as well.
Yeah.
And I could have just never put the book out there and it still would have been healing for me.
Hmm. Just writing it down.
Just writing it down and going through that process of, the story I told myself, the
Hmm.
pattern, gold, that in itself is revealing, even to me
Well,
still.
you talk about that in the book too, like as kind of one of the things to do to help identify these patterns, right? Is to start writing things down.
Yeah.
Um, which I thought was interesting because it's like, I was like, so she literally was. I know that you do this stuff all the time with people that you work with, but also like the act of writing this book was this, I don't know, cathartic process of being able to get these things out and look at them. And did you find as you were doing that process that you learned new lessons or found new gold, so to speak, in some of these experiences that you hadn't previously identified?
I believe so because I hadn't really thought about it in that way. I
Hmm.
didn't intend to write this book this way. It just sort of came about.
Hmm.
And that's not how most people write. But this, the pattern and all of that just happened in one after I wrote one thing. And I guess
Hmm.
it's because of my first experience just, really created these patterns of like just loving humans, like what are they doing? Hiding in the closet, listening to the gossip. I am so sorry. I did not mean for that to happen. Can you hear it? Can't
No,
hear
I
it?
can't.
Oh, all right. Never mind. I'm not sorry. Um,
The Zoom background noise cancellation is pretty good. So
lovely. Yes.
yeah.
So, yeah, so it was really some of the things were eye-opening to me. I didn't realize, I knew the impact the nurses had on me,
Hmm.
but writing about it was different, almost like a tribute to them, and I've talked about it in other ways before, but I don't know, it just sort of really defined it. And then the guidance counselor who said I had a high IQ, right? I mean, that was always in the background for me, and it made me feel like I at least had half a brain. Um, but writing about it once again, like sort of like it freed things for me. That's what it did.
Okay.
I didn't have to, when we're no longer, it's not like walking behind us all the time, like saying, I'm here, let's be safe, let's not do this, let's not do that. It's a new perspective. It opens a door to like looking at things differently.
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of like re-examine it in a different light. It's weird what happens when you write things down,
Yeah, I've been writing
right?
since a kid, so yeah.
Well, and that was one of the questions that I was writing down while you were talking was like, now, I mean, again, I've known you for a long time. I know that you have always done a lot of work in different realms and modalities and been exploring your life and your past from all different points of view and directions. And so but like you said in the beginning, like you're still doing work, right?
Right.
And my question about all that is, well, it's kind of a two-parter, right? It's number one is like, do all people have patterns all the time that they're
Mm.
operating? And then the other part of that question is like, how do you revisit these patterns if you do have patterns all the time? Like, how do you identify them? How do you figure out which patterns are good and bad and what you should work on?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. Mm, I I perceive that we do all have patterns.
Hmm.
However, some they're different for everyone. Some people maybe it's spending too much money. Or, for another person, it's drugs and alcohol. For another person, maybe it's they go from relationship to relationship to relationship because they don't feel worthy or something.
Hmm.
Um, but sometimes what happens is, okay, this is what I used to say to people all the time. When you get sick enough of yourself, you will change.
Hmm.
It's when we get sick of the same old experience over and over and over again.
Hmm.
Something inside of us can wake up and say, oh, yes, here I go again, rejecting this beautiful human because I'd rather stay in with this abusive person, or
Hmm.
because I'm not worthy of something better, or, who knows, right? There's always so many different versions
Yeah.
of this, and everybody has their own, or I'm angry because I didn't get what I wanted, or, who knows, right? Um, and then it's what kind of steals our life energy from us, and it can stop us from being present. I know I said my word, yeah, I told you earlier, my word for this year is presence, but that's partly
Mhm.
because all the distractions everywhere, and
Yeah.
between all of the technology and everything else. So to be more intentional about that. But when people can start be more, once you notice, you can't not notice.
Hmm.
Ultimately,
The patterns you're saying, like
yeah,
once you notice them, yeah.
yes. Once you notice them, it's like, oh, and then, am I? Oh, there it is again. Oh, hmm. Okay. Do I want to do this different or not? I encourage people to set their intentions, not like, because studying things and trying to fix yourself all the time, all it does is make us feel broken
Or confused.
or confused.
But, you know, when you're as much a mess as like I am, I'm like, oh my God, like what do I work on today? I got so many things I got to work on.
Right, exactly. And so, and you're one of the best people I know, so stop saying that.
Oh, thanks. I was fishing there. I did it, you know, I was trying to
Yeah,
get you to say nice things about me.
yeah, because you um eh, as soon as we start making all making ourselves wrong all the time does is feed the wrong,
Mm,
right? And so then we're always feeling like there's something wrong with us. So we're always searching for something new. And oh, maybe if I go to this person, it'll fix it. And the truth is, we have to learn how to sit with our feelings and let our body know and our mind know that we're safe. Nobody's coming to get you. Nobody's, and when we have those feelings and we can't quite release them, maybe we need to have I mean, it's not bad to have a coach or a therapist or things like that. I just want people to remember, like, don't make yourself wrong. Don't spend your life making yourself wrong because that's so sad. And
yeah.
it just keeps it going. Um, and I know that's hard to do.
So, with regards to the book,
Yeah.
you're writing this book, you're sharing lots of personal stuff,
Mhm.
some of the trauma and tragedy. You know, some of them are just wild to me that any human should experience some of those things, Karen.
I know.
Um, what's
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's wild. And when you're writing this book and you're putting this stuff together and you're talking about some of the ways that you have found to, I don't want to say cope because that's not the right word. Cope doesn't sound like overcoming or triumph. You know what I mean? It's like, but the ways that you've been able to improve your life.
Yeah.
Um, when you are writing this, like, who are you writing this book for? I guess.
Yeah, I think it's for people who are sick, kind of sick of themselves and the predicaments they put themselves in without knowing it.
Hmm.
Um, they've maybe oftentimes they've done the therapy, they've had coaches, they've done this, they've done that, but their self-worth is still quite not there, or their feelings of confidence, or they feel like something's still missing.
Hmm.
And sometimes that has to do with just going a little deeper and digging a little deeper. And also, like, I'm not afraid to give people language to use.
Hmm.
When they've got to have a hard conversation, whether it's a business owner that's working with an employee, or a employee that's working with a with an owner, or it's their partner, or it's their children, or whatever. Sometimes we need some words
Hmm.
that just help us to go, oh, right. I don't have to go like this. If you'd stop doing this, or I'm this, or instead of saying, so what I'm noticing is, or, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Start with why, or for me, when it's with people that you're really close to, at business, as well, mostly. But that feels like something that's really important that people don't know how to have that next level communication.
Hmm.
You know how many people, not over the last few years, that I would ask them, because occasionally I would work with people that are having really complicated relationships.
Hmm.
And whether it was the couple or the one of the individuals in the conversation, I would say, would you rather have just get a divorce and have no conversation or have a conversation and then work your way through it? They would almost always say, I'd rather just get a divorce than have the conversation,
Hmm.
which is maybe we have more tools now. Talking, I've been coaching for what, 17, 18 years, something like that.
Yeah.
First few years, that was more common. I think we have more tools now with podcasts and, friends and coaches and things like that.
Hmm.
But sometimes people just can't, they cannot have a conversation.
Yeah. Communication's hard.
It can be, especially I, you've heard of reflective listening.
I think only through you, but please, for our
Okay.
listeners, please describe it.
It's just a really good, speaking from personal experience, a really good tool to use. I, yeah, we went to this Imago therapist at one point in time. Kevin and I are the most happy couple on the planet. And we've had our moments, right? And
Mhm.
we were both willing to like, oh, let's look at this picture. We had sort of this pattern that was happening at one point in time. And and so I learned reflective listening, and it's basically and let me just tell you, a lot of people get triggered by this, what I'm hearing you say.
Mhm.
You don't have to word it exactly like that, but it does help. So you say, listen, is there something going on here? Is there some, and the person, they're mad or whatever. And they say blah, blah, blah. And you say, oh, what I'm hearing you say is this. Did I get it? And then you go on to, they said the next thing. And sometimes people just need to be heard. Honest to God, like they need to say what they need to say without us defending, without us, I mean, defensiveness was yeah, I was really good at that.
That was your superpower.
That was my superpower. Oh yeah, baby. So it just changes the whole conversation. And some couples, aren't meant to stay together, but some are.
Hmm.
And then we just get in the next relationship and that same exact thing happens, only it's a different flavor. Like it's vanilla ice cream, that's what holds it. But
Hmm.
then one's got chocolate chips and one's got caramel swirls. But
Yeah.
it's the same pattern.
Same pattern. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So would you say that a lot of the work that you're doing with your clients is to recognize or identify the patterns and then help them find tools to deal with those patterns?
Absolutely.
Like are the patterns inherently bad, or is it just that the the pattern itself and the result that you typically get from it are always the same, and so you're looking to change it?
Well, it depends on how damaging the pattern is.
Okay.
Like a pattern could be as simple as like, oh, when I notice something, I just go for a walk.
Hmm.
It's a great pattern, right? How many people learn that when they're kids? It's all about our childhood,
Yeah.
honestly. And it's not like I want it to be about our childhood. It's just the truth, right?
It just is. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Not like, I'm not saying, oh, if you had a great childhood, good. I love that, you know? But
Hmm.
pattern, you were too well taken care of, and now you just want to be taken care of. And you get fired from jobs because you don't really know how to work. And, unlike me, who had to make dinners and do the dishes and take care of my younger brother and sister, and, like all the, now I'm like ridiculously hyper independent, which doesn't serve me.
Mm.
And it's a practice for me.
It's a practice. Yeah.
The F word and the R word, receiving.
Yes. It's it's interesting that it comes back to, and it's really funny too that that you're mentioning that, because when I was uh going back through the book and looking at stuff, and like one of the exercises you have to do was like write your childhood self a letter. And I was just like, oh no, I don't want to do that. So I was like, oh shit, there's probably something there I should probably investigate, should probably take a look at, but I don't want to, Karen.
But the thing is, are you happy? I know you have, I think, a pretty good life. Yeah, we have things that we're working on, all of us, right?
Yeah, everybody does.
Um, and it's okay not to write yourself a letter, but if there's things that are still lingering, I feel like it is so beneficial. Like nobody's ever, it's not like somebody said to me along the way, God, look at you. You're taking care of this, that. You're in and out of the hospital. You're this, you're that. Oh my goodness, what a good job. No one.
Hmm.
So sometimes I know I talk about inner children, but it's our childhood, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I still have one of them that kind of wants to sit over in the corner. She's a teenager. She's like, can we just not do this anymore? You know?
Hmm.
And once in a while, I have to say, come on, like, let's have some fun. She's the one who doesn't want to have fun because it's not safe.
Right.
So does that make sense how I'm saying it? Did I even answer your question that time?
No, it does to me. Yes, it does to me. And again, well, you mentioned the inner child stuff. I think it's fascinating. There's, was it Dr. Burns' transactional analysis from like the 1960s, and they talk a lot about inner child and natural child and all that stuff. And it's fascinating to see how that stuff actually shows up in your day to day, whether it's your personality or how you do things or what you do and why you do it. And it's really interesting stuff. And it's yeah, not to go off on a big tangent on that, but
No, no, it is.
I
It's
think it's
interesting.
fascinating and fascinating that it's a thing, and that even at 48 years old, there's probably some stuff from my childhood that's still impacting my day to day as we speak, right? Yeah,
Did I say how old I am?
you can say how old you are. I won't ask how old you are because you're not supposed to do that, but you are welcome to volunteer that information, Karen.
Oh, what's interesting is 70, I'm still learning things.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like I'm an old person. I can't stand it when people say I'm so old. I'm like, will you shut up? Like, age isn't a death sentence. Yes, you're gonna die someday, but could you just live while you're here?
Hmm. Yeah.
Take a fly, get some fresh air, like I can't expect everybody to be like me, but I just feel like stop it.
Yeah. So I know we're getting short on time.
Yeah, sorry.
Uh, no, you're okay. I just want to make sure we get everything in. So the book, Unbroken, Turning Your Pieces into Peace and Joy. Where can people get it?
It's on my website at rubyredroad.com, and it's also on Amazon, excuse me. Also on Amazon.
Okay.
Just make sure, like it's easy. There's a lot of unbroken titles. Sorry.
Get some tea. If anyone that's read the book knows that you like a lot of tea and that you're not heating the water in the microwave anymore. So that's good.
Should we start this again? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Appropriate time, right? Don't be seen, Karen. Let's give you a
I
little.
know. I know.
Yeah, so it's on my website and Amazon. It's easiest. Sometimes it comes up when you put in Unbroken, turning your pieces into peace and joy, but sometimes you have to put my name there.
Okay. Okay.
I didn't realize how many books were named Unbroken
Yeah.
after I did it, but
Okay.
that was the name. So
That's the name. And one more time, we talked about it, but just again, the people that are going to get the most out of this book, who are
they are. people who really want to get to know themselves. They've done the work, they feel like something's missing. They'd like to, I work with a lot of entrepreneurs. I mean, it
Mhm.
sounds crazy, but sometimes, I mean, there's this match between being this independent person with also just having all of these things that are following around behind you that you would like to at least solve the puzzle pieces of,
Mhm.
and then have some tools to move forward with. Like, what's it say on here? Let me see.
What's it say on your
What's
book?
what's it say on the back? It says, I wrote this book for anyone who has carried pain, shame, or silence, thinking they had to hold it all together.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, most of the people that I work with have had trauma. Um, most of us have, but some are more significant.
Yeah.
Um, and they don't understand the pieces and how to, a lot of people don't know how to set boundaries for themselves. Once again, I'm not a big fan of like category words. Boundaries, I think, is one of them these days.
Okay.
But to be able to be more intentional around their life, to have make decisions based on not worrying about other people, but caring about people, but not selling their soul for the sake of others all the time
Hmm.
and just wearing themselves out. A lot of people experience burnout. They don't know what it's from, but sometimes when you experience burnout, it's from all that stuff you haven't dealt with yet.
Okay.
And it sounds crazy, but it's just true.
Yeah. Um, and then if people want to get a hold of you, they're
Yep.
interested in working with you, they have questions about the process or how you work with them, how do people find you for that stuff?
Yeah, it's on my website. They can just, submit, get in touch with me. You can also just email direct to me, because that's, if you go to my website, that's what it's going to do anyway.
Yeah.
And it's Karen at Ruby, RUBYRED, rubyredroad.com.
Awesome.
Yeah, Karen at rubyredroad.com.
Okay. Well,
Um,
Karen, thank you so much for taking time to talk to me about your book. I really, really did enjoy it. Now it's my turn to need a glass of water here. Um, no, I really did enjoy it, and again, a lot of respect for you for being able to share those pieces of yourself with complete strangers and putting yourself out there. We talked about it, I think, on the last episode that we recorded with you maybe a year ago, a year and a half ago when you came out to the farm. But just the act of even running a blog is sometimes challenging, let alone putting together a whole book. And I thought it was great. I certainly think I'm going to be going back to in there. So thanks for writing it.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for having me. I always appreciate your wisdom, the way, I don't know, you help people. One of the things what's the word you use? Unwavering. I never forget that. Like unwavering is so important. And I think of it sometimes. What would be the unwavering support thing today
Yeah,
for my clients or for, whoever? And how can I do it? Like, and you also care about people a lot. I know that's part of the unwavering part, but you you notice things. You help people that need help. Um, I don't know. You're a participant in life.
I'm trying to be, Karen. I'm also trying to take the compliments that you're giving me and not deprecate too much. And yeah, so
Yeah.
thank you for the kind words.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for being you, and
Okay.
appreciate you. And actually, I should say too, as you're talking about who you help, you and I have worked together off and on throughout the years, different times, and without a doubt, I'm always very business focused and trying to achieve and do the things I'm trying to do. But I also know that it's always the trash in my head that's getting in the way. And you have always been unwavering in your support to help me with that stuff, and to help me with it. And I've always gained a lot from our time together. So I just want to say that, it's, when you and I worked together, it wasn't because we're doing any kind of trauma work. It was, I'm trying to be more successful in life, and you are helping me see the blind spots, and or helping me see the patterns that I have that are maybe are blind spots. I don't see them. So I respect you and the work you do, and very appreciative of it. So thank you very
Thank
much.
you. I
You are
appreciate
welcome.
it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And we appreciate everybody that's listening to this, of course. So thanks everybody for listening. You can find all of our podcasts on buyinglocal.us, as well as listen to them or watch them on Spotify, YouTube, Rumble, and Apple Podcasts. So thanks everybody for listening, and you'll hear from us next week.